Welcome to another edition of BoxingInfo. I'm your host, The Islander, and as advertised, back with a recap of last week's fights, as well as a short preview of one fight anyway coming up this week. Just want to go back to some fights I went ahead and may have missed, actually. In case I did or didn't, actually I did cover Dmitry Pirog, did win a decision over Nobuhiro Ishida of James Kirkland fame in Moscow. There's been a Pirog sighting. Okay, Friday night in Las Vegas, Ishe Smith scored a 4th round TKO over Ai Bruce. Remember I was saying it's been many years that Ishe Smith's been able to make 154 pounds, and he looked, decent in the fight. Also, Daniel Ponce de Leon scored a 10-round decision over Eduardo Lascano. I was kind of going in and out on this fight. There's only so much, I guess, stalking or following I can watch Ponce de Leon do. Even though he basically, Ponce de Leon won every round of the fight. Something I didn't cover, in Singapore last Saturday, Chris John defended his WBA real featherweight title with a unanimous decision over Shoji Kumura of Japan. And I'm trying to find how many title defenses this makes that. Sorry about this. I don't know. It's in the upper teens anyway. Something else that happened in Tijuana. Rafael Marquez scored a 1st round TKO over Eric Aiken, who we've seen on ESPN several times in the featherweight division. Not sure where that leaves Rafael Marquez, because he's lost. He was stopped when he had a hurt shoulder against Juan Mal Lopez, and I guess I wouldn't mind seeing him mix it up with Salido to see what would happen. Going on to the, what is this, over in Germany, another card I didn't cover. Robert Stieglitz scored a 12-round decision over Nader Hamdan. I did not see this. 120, 108, 117, 111 twice. Tells you how that went. More importantly, Marco Huck survived a draw in 12 rounds with Ola Afolabi. I tried to find footage of this because, from what I understand, Afolabi appeared to score a knockdown over Huck early in the fight that was ruled a slip, and I think busted his nose up pretty good too. Scores were 114, 114 twice, and 115, 113 for Huck. Supposedly round 12 was the round of the year candidate. That brought us to the pay-per-view card, which I will speak more about the pay-per-view itself a little bit later. But a couple of fights I want to cover on here that I didn't preview. Carlos Quintana and DeAndre Lattimore. Carlos Quintana had a welterweight title for about a cup of coffee before it was ripped back from him by Paul Williams. And DeAndre Lattimore really was robbed against Corey Spinks, and should have had he's a very heavy hitting St. Louis fighter. Should have had a version of the junior middleweight title before Corey Spinks. Surprisingly, Carlos Quintana dominated this fight and scored a 6th round knockout over Lattimore, who, I don't know, just did not look like he was in the fight. Quintana looked like he was reborn, and maybe he and Cotto were drinking from the fountain of youth or something. I don't know. And I'm not even halfway kidding about that. But there's been like a resurgence between those two that was just incredible on this night. So a good win for Quintana, who gets himself back on his feet. Jesse Vargas scored a ho-hum decision over Steve Forbes, who was, again, like I told you in the preview show, fighting out of his weight class, and filling in for Alfonso Gomez. All right, that brought us to the semi-main event, which was Saul Alvarez defending his WBC 154-pound strap against Sugar Shane Mosley. I'm not sure. I know a lot of you think different things. I've read all the write-ups about this. You know, they write this off as a classic passing of the torch. I see it a little bit differently. You know, I'm still not so certain how good Alvarez is. Okay, if he was matched against Cotto and performed like this, the Cotto that showed up for Mayweather, I'd have bigger, brighter things to say about him. He did his job and did exactly what he was supposed to do with Mosley, which was push him around, beat him up, and basically win going away. But, and there's a big but, it was very obvious in this fight that Shane Mosley's reflexes have been shot, and that there was some questioning whether he had power because he hit Alvarez and nothing happened. The situation is this: if a guy sees a punch coming and gets hit with it, he can usually take it. With Mosley, it's the same thing we hear in the news and the politics. It's one thing to have nuclear capabilities. It's another thing to be able to deliver them to where they're going. Mosley, the power is the last thing to leave a fighter. The reflexes are the first thing to go. And I disagree with a lot of the people who say that Mosley was basically known for his power. It was the combination of speed and power. And the speed and the reflexes have left him. And I've said this time and time before. Sugar Ray Leonard brought this up perfectly when he was calling, I guess for the, I don't know if it was the Golden Boy pay-per-view or whoever's pay-per-view it was, private pay-per-view, when Bernard Hopkins fought the rematch with Roy Jones. And they were trying to figure out what Roy Jones was waiting for. And Sugar Ray Leonard pinned this perfectly, as I've been saying even longer before he said this, is that when an older fighter gets older, especially one who's had great speed and great skill, they see the opening, and yet they know they should basically be going through the opening, throwing a right hand through the opening, throwing a left hook through the opening, but something in their mind tells them that there is a risk for doing that and that the fire is coming back at them. Younger fighters in their prime, don't even think about the repercussions of taking a chance. The veteran fighters do. They know what, and after being hit by Alvarez aplenty, you could see where the trepidation would come into play with Mosley not wanting to throw, you know, basically, he did let his hands go in this fight a lot more than he did against Pacquiao, and the later, you know, from round 3 on against Mayweather and against Sergio Mora. But my thinking is this, that he sees the openings. He just doesn't want to jump through them because of what's coming back at him. And at this point in time, I think he is finished at the elite level. And I really think he should maybe take one soft fight to go out on a win, and go out a winner. He's had a Hall of Fame career where people don't realize and understand. And getting back to the fight, you know, basically everything that Mosley threw at Alvarez threw back in tons. And the thing is, you know, this fight, the scores were 119, 109, 118, 110. Probably 118, 110 or 117, 111 was probably apt for this fight, only because, you know, I think maybe, you know, I'm not even going to argue with the judges' scores in this fight because Alvarez dominated. Moving forward, doing everything that Harold Lubman always says you score on: clean, effective punching, effective aggression, aggressiveness, defense, this and that, blah, 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 ring generalship. It was all done by Alvarez. Here is one of the scariest things about this fight that I have brought up on the screen. CompuBox had Alvarez landing 348 shots out of 673 thrown, 52%. What is that? Some of you are scoffing at me about the reflex thing. Have you ever seen Shane Mosley be hit with 1 out of every 2 shots a guy threw at him? We're not talking about, you know, Floyd Mayweather precision here. We're talking about just bombs coming at him. And, you know, coming at him faster than somebody like Margarito could throw him. But at the same time, you know, I don't see Canelo being the danger to Mosley as a Pacquiao or a Mayweather is, and this tells you how bad he has slid. Get off my screen, freaking Norton. All right, so 348 punches, the most blows ever landed against Mosley in any of those 34 bouts. I'm trying to find out how many punches Mosley landed. But in any event, because he landed quite a few punches. He landed 20-something, like 25% of his punches, 1 out of every 4 on Alvarez, which showed he was trying to work. And it's another thing that, again, you know, I'm not totally sold on Alvarez. Where I will be, though, is that they are talking about lining up a fight with James Kirkland. And that will be a true test. Or a fight against Molina would be a true test. It's just a sad day. And the other thing I'm going to say about this fight in watching it is that what most people don't understand is that you can't undo the damage that was done in this fight. The only thing you do is prevent it in the future to Mosley. And I understand that he's very proud and he wanted to finish the fight, and he did, like a true champion, like the legend he is. There is a reason why Evander Holyfield's speech is the way it is. There is a reason why Meldrick Taylor's speech is the way it is. And a lot of these fighters. And it's because of fights exactly like this, and multiple ones of them. So my advice to you, Shane Mosley, is I've been a big fan of yours your whole career. Go take a cupcake or a tomato can, kick it real hard, and go out on a win. And nobody will think any less of you, including me. For Canelo Alvarez, again, I know they're trying to line up a fight with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., which, you know, I've been more impressed with Alvarez than I have been with Chavez, let me be honest with you. Toss-up fight. You never know when 2 Mexican fighters fight each other with big followings, what's going to happen. Okay, now we go to the main event, which was Miguel Cotto versus Floyd Mayweather. And what I want to say about this is how absolutely impressed I was with the way both fighters performed. And I think the reason I'm saying this is that I had very low expectations of what was going to happen. I was thinking, I was not that impressed with Cotto against Margarito in his rematch with Margarito. You know, his face still got busted up, even though everybody claimed that Margarito was using, you know, illegal hand wraps the first time they fought in a different state than California. We're not getting into that. The situation was I wasn't expecting as much from Cotto, and he brought his A-plus game to the table. Now understand, there is some argument going back and forth of whether the judges' scorecards were... I felt the fight was a little tighter than the judges scored, but understand where the discrepancy comes from in this fight. And I'm just going to do a recap. The first 4 or 5 rounds were basically Cotto hard charging after Mayweather. Mayweather pinpoint counters, you know, getting caught on the ropes every so often, spinning or getting out of trouble, countering out of trouble, and resetting the pattern. Something happened in the 5th or 6th round where either Cotto's corner or Cotto himself realized this plan's not working. And he reverted back to a style that I think suits him very well from 147 pounds up. And it's a style he used in the very first round against Pacquiao. He used it in the very first round against Joshua Clottey. And he used it most of the night against Margarito in the last fight, where he fought off his back foot and waited for Mayweather to do something. And that's when he caught Mayweather with a very good left hook in the 6th round and a jab that started Mayweather's nose bleeding. Now, both fighters again performed admirably, and understand that Floyd Mayweather was sick going into this fight. He had a very bad cold, and he had also cut short his sparring 7 days earlier than normal because he'd hurt his left hand. I've been known to knock and be critical of this man, but when you go into the ring hurt, and you go into the ring hurt and sick, and still perform to a level that is at the elite level, I've got nothing but respect for you, nothing but kudos to give you. Mayweather still won a majority of the rounds, and Cotto couldn't put 2 or 3 rounds together back to back, no matter what Jim Lampley was saying. All right, here's where the controversy comes in. Cotto was upset with the scorecards, as most of you were, and even I was. But when I look back and watch it again, the reason why this is so compelling is that every single round of this fight was super competitive. There were no walkaway rounds in this fight. Maybe the 12th a little bit, but up to that point, even though Mayweather won a round or Cotto won a round, it was nip and tuck the whole time. So it gave the illusion that Cotto was actually doing better on the scorecards than he really was. That's just my take on this. I had Mayweather winning the fight, and probably first glance watching it, probably in the, what most writers had it, like 8 rounds to 4 or, 9 rounds to 3. But as I watch it again, and if I'm really being impartial, my personal thing is that yes, Cotto was in every round of the fight, unlike all of Mayweather's other opponents, and that made us think that he was winning rounds that he really wasn't. I think that he performed so much better than I thought he could, and I thought Mayweather performed really well too, and gave the fans what they want. This is a pay-per-view that I did not buy, but wish I had. And I want to do a question of the week for all of you. The reason why I didn't buy it is I'm not putting any money in Oscar De La Hoya's pocket, ever. I mean, that joker's been stealing from us forever, and I'm not putting no more money in his pocket. I paid out how many hundreds of dollars waiting for him to get his face kicked in until he finally did against Pacquiao. I mean, $50 down the drain here, down the drain there. I mean, the Corte fight, the Trinidad fight, the Vargas fight. I mean, Mosley twice. I'm going on and on. No more money in De La Hoya's pocket, or Golden Shower's pocket. No more. But these two deserved it. And one of the things that I was very upbeat and very happy about this event was that Mayweather was very respectful of Cotto leading up to the fight, throughout the fight, and after the fight. And I think Cotto was showing a little bit of too much sour grapes, leaving the ring without talking to HBO, because I don't know that a rematch would be warranted, but at the same time, there's still good fights out there for him. And, I personally think that, some people are saying that, Mayweather has lost a half a step or a step. Listen, I don't know if he has or he hasn't. But what I am going to say about him is this. Even if you have a cold, and even if you have a bad left hand, that shouldn't hurt your defense. And Cotto was scoring with punches that I've never seen other fighters score on him with. Basically turning a right hand to the body and a right hand up to top to the head and land both punches. Leading with, Mayweather was doing everything he could to take away the left hook from Cotto, which he did perfectly. But the problem was, he was getting hit with solid right hands, and the dangerous thing about this is there aren't that many dangerous guys out there for Mayweather to fight. Cotto was one of them. Victor Ortiz, if he would have had his stupid head screwed on straight, was another one. Guys, especially Ortiz, because he could punch with both hands. Cotto pretty much is left hand dangerous. And until there's another guy, and I know a lot of you will want me to name guys who can execute my solution to the Mayweather puzzle, you're not going to see that. And if you want me to name the guy I thought was going to do it, he's dead now, and his name was Vernon Forrest. Could punch well with both hands, had physical attributes. He was the chosen one. Regardless of how much you guys want to argue with me, he was the one. But neither here nor there. The talk about Pacquiao, look, they can keep talking and talking and talking. The longer that fight takes to be made, the worse it is for Mayweather. And it was proof of this in this fight. Because Cotto performed way better against Mayweather than he did against Pacquiao. Now, some of you are going to say, the catch weight. Look, 2 pounds ain't going to kill a guy on the scale. especially, I don't remember what the restriction was after the weigh-in and whatnot, but 2 pounds, not going to kill a guy who had fought it, who had come up from 140 anyway. Okay. I don't. Now the talk is that Bob Arum is standing in the way of this fight. The truth is, I don't think this fight is going to happen anytime soon. And the longer it goes on, what have I said about who Father Time basically attacks? It's the skill fighter, the reflexes. They're the ones that fall victim to Father Time. And you know, basically Pacquiao's made the latter part of his career about his reflexes and speed and stuff like that. So we may get a watered down version of what that fight once would have been, but I'm not holding my breath for it. All right, what was a couple of things in the news. I know some of you reported on my channel, and I know thank most of you for reporting on my channel that about the comments. You just can't get them to stay there static. I mean, you can view them, but you can't get them to stay there like they used to be. Question of the week. I was so happy with this fight with Mayweather and Cotto, I guess because it blew my expectations, that I was going through my mind, and I wanted to share this with you. I want all of you who have bought pay-per-view in the past to respond on the channel comments, or if you have access to the, I mean on the video comments. If you have access to the channel comments, that's fine too. I want you to dig through your memory bank, and in all the time that pay-per-view has been offered, and for where I am in the country, it's been since I think sometime in 1990, what has been the pay-per-view show that has been worth the money, that you would pay for it again, it was a no-brainer, and this and that. And I'm going to tell you two. One that I bought and one that I didn't buy that would be well worth the money. The first one I did not buy, because I didn't even know it was being offered, was a $9.95 pay-per-view in which Robert Quiroga, the IBF Junior Bantamweight champion, was defending his title in San Antonio back in the early night, like 1991 I think it was, against Kid Hakeem. And the fight went the whole distance and they about killed each other, and Kid Hakeem eventually lost his life because of this fight. And Robert Quiroga retained his title. That would be probably one because of the low price and the action, by far worth the money. One that I bought though, that by far exceeded any other fight and action that was worth the money. I'm thinking about it because I'm going back to the Tyson ones, which, you know, with like Razor Ruddock, which were pretty good. But the one that stands in my mind was basically the 1999 Felix Trinidad, Ferocious Fernando Vargas. By far and away, one of the best fights, most on the line for the money. You go back in the 90s, you know, there might have been one where Tyson and Razor Ruddock fought, and you had Azuma Nelson and Jeff Fennick on the undercard. But I don't think, as far as getting definitive results and sustained action, it was as good as the Vargas Trinidad one, the Trinidad Vargas one. And that's just mine. You tell me who your favorite or most value for the money was, and we can, you know, basically take it from there. All right, the schedule for this week. Not much on it. One fight I do want to chronicle, which is the third fight in the Philippines on May 12th between WBO flyweight titleist Brian Villoria and Omar Nino. Omar Nino wrestled away the WBC light flyweight title from Villoria. And then they fought a rematch in which I believe it was ruled a draw originally and then turned into a no contest because Nino tested positive for a banned substance. This time Villoria is the champion again, and he's fighting Nino on his turf. What Villoria has been able to do to revitalize his career was basically set up shop in the Philippines and lure Latin American fighters over there. That didn't bode well for him a few fights ago when he got stopped in the 12th round, but he's done better than he hasn't done in doing this. Toss-up, I lean a little bit towards Villoria, because I've always thought he was naturally bigger than Nino, and this bigger weight division where he can be even more, a lot bigger than Nino, may actually serve him well. I don't know, you know, Nino makes a lot of these fights with Villoria by outworking him, or has made the other fights by outworking him, and we'll see in this fight, because this really is a crossroads fight for both of these guys. I don't think the loser is going to be in a title fight anytime soon after this, unless they fight each other for a fourth time. But I kind of doubt it. And in the news, a couple little things in the news. Lamont Peterson was found to have been taking some type of synthetic testosterone, and now his rematch with Amir Khan is maybe in jeopardy. Also, David Haye and Derek Chisora will get it on, and they will do that on July 14th. Guess who I'm rooting for in that fight? Also, a proposed matchup between Juan Manuel Marquez and Zab Judah is being discussed to take place possibly at Cowboy Stadium. I don't know that Marquez draws like Manny Pacquiao does, and I don't think that Zab Judah draws anywhere close to any of them, especially outside of Brooklyn or New York City for that matter. So I don't know how that's going to work. Well, that's going to do it for this show, and hopefully we'll be back when some more exciting stuff happens, and thanks for being with me.